Actually, I think this is a criticism that I got a lot in domestically these days. Why you are not cutting interest rate more actively? I think there are many reasons. I think monetary policy and interest rate cannot solve every problem. Okay, and then for the time being, I think the government trying to find a way to expedite their expenditures, and Korea is very good at those front because we have a more electronic system that we can rely on government expenditures, and we are very accustomed to have this kind of swift fiscal support for various business cycle management. So as you mentioned, the problem is that if you use a fiscal stimulus much, that year is good, but on the other hand, the next year's growth prospect will be reduced unless you keep on increasing the fiscal stimulus. In case Korea, I think the government is know this fact very well. So probably I hope and that they will do some modest fiscal stimulus without hurting the fiscal sustainability.
But because we didn't see that fiscal action coming fast enough, we thought that in the previous rate decision that you would actually cut rates, but you actually held.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Bank of Korea need to step up efforts right now?
We are definitely also interest rate reduction cycle. So when and how much, we will look at all other elements. But definitely we think that monetary policy and fiscal policy both have a room to have a more accommodative policies.
Especially now that you have seen a few weeks of the Trump presidency and all of these tariff threats coming into place.
Right. So that is why I'm emphasizing more fiscal stimulus is necessary. First of all, we in the last 2 years, when we have a very high inflation period, unlike other countries' government, our Ministry of Finance maintained a very conservative fiscal policy. So in some sense, we have more fiscal resources when the economy is now heading below the potential growth rate. So we have room. And second, monetary policy has room to cut because our current interest rate is a slightly higher in a restrictive area. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, given U.S. policies and U.S. Fed policies, the depreciation pressure is building up. So in monetary policy, we have to consider both the stimulus effect as well as its impact on other exchange and other areas too. So that is why I think policy coordination between fiscal and monetary policy is very necessary at this moment.
We heard all of your board members were in line with being open to a rate cut in the next 3 months.
That does not necessarily, this is also called forward guidance, but that is also conditional. So yes, in January, all of our members say that given that we hold the interest rate at the time, given by looking at the economic conditions, there is a good chance that we will cut the rate in our next 3 months period meetings. But that's not the kind of agreement. They will definitely look at the new evidence, and based on the new evidence, they can change their mind. But at this moment, that is the nature of the monetary policy.
It seems to be that right now the won is stabilizing at that mid-1400 levels. Is that sort of the new normal now?
I wouldn't say new normal, because if I say new normal, it means that I have a certain level in mind. I think we have to look at what drives our exchange rate. And if I phrase this way, I think in December I was very uncomfortable because our exchange rate is moving depreciated a lot more than other currencies because of political reason, which is our own unique reason. On the other hand, in January, actually Korean won behaved better than other currencies because this on abnormal regions is subdued, while still, in terms of level itself, the Korean won is also affected together with other currencies by the strong dollar trend.
Why not make a move now when potentially the effects and fallout of all of these different risks from the domestic and external factors could come in at some point later in the year?
Actually, I think this is a criticism that I got a lot in domestically these days. Why you are not cutting interest rate more actively? I think there are many reasons. I think monetary policy and interest rate cannot solve every problem. Okay, and then like if you have a low interest rate, and definitely it will help people to pay back their debt, and it may make a little more stimulus to the economy. But on the other hand, you have to think about negative side impact. One is that it may end up increasing the asset prices, especially real estate prices. It has a direct impact on the exchange rate. And yes, we can manage it, but if it really depends, environment. If the exchange rate is depreciating quite rapidly, you don't want to put the oil in the fire, right?
That signaling, when it comes to fiscal policy, is so important for also household sentiment, right?
Yeah.
How are they doing at a time when prices are still rising? I mean, inflation right now, the latest one overshot your target, right?
No, but our inflation, we reached our target a lot earlier than any other countries. In the last 2-3 months, our inflation was below 2%, and in December it was like 1.8, 1.9. Now the recent figure went up to 2.2% because of the depreciation of our currency, exacerbated by the higher oil prices. But given that last year, in the beginning of the year, oil price was quite high. So if you think about baseline impact, I think the inflation rate for the next couple of months will probably move down around 2% level.
What about imported inflation? And at that point, I mean, what level of the won would reflect economic fundamentals?
So I think I already mentioned that, last month our exchange rate went to like 1470. So about 71 higher than prior to the martial law declaration. And if it stays there for whole year, then we will have about, at the time we are projecting 1.9% as an inflation rate. But if one stays around 1470 level for a long time, I think our inflation, I have to at least give 0.15% more to, so it will be like a 2.1, 2.5 something rate. So we won't be like a 3% or something. So, but exchange, if exchange rate further depreciate, that will definitely will cause our inflation rate higher.
Which would then, in turn, make it more challenging to cut rates?
Right. Yeah, sure. But we are not at the stage yet. So currently, as of today, our exchange rate is on about 1450. And depending on the U.S. tariff policies, especially with respect to China, and then also Japan's monetary policy decision down to April and July, there's a room that the exchange rate move in both sides. And at the same time, in our calculation, about 31 is increase of exchange rate was due to this martial law declaration. It's political reason. So there's a room that once our political situation become much more stabilized, the room that portion can go down. So it's very hard to predict which direction the exchange rate will go.
You have experience as the IMF director of Asia Pacific during the first term of President Trump. Can you get any lessons from how the economy, rates, and FX moved back then because of the trade policies, and do they apply now?
Actually, that was a kind of benchmark that when I think about Trump 2 policies, I thought that my experience will help very much. But now I believe that the second term of Trump administration is quite different from the first term. So I don't want to say.
What's so different?
It's not just a tariff policy. I think it's very hard to, at this moment, I have to look at it more. But this may change a lot of international order. So we'll see how it goes.
Especially those comments around the U.S. taking over Gaza, the Middle East tensions.
I think I won't comment on it. But at this moment, I think what I'm feeling at this moment, it can be much more broader than tariffs.
External shocks coming from the likes of oil prices.
So look, as an economist, and especially trained economist by the IMF and also policymakers in Korea, you do not excuse that why you missed the reason. What reason drive it? You look at the market. When the market changes, you adjust your policy. That's your job.